Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is actually going to be a book club book review. So, sir, there is no room. I'm so sorry. Like I was saying, it's going to be a book review video. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy the review. If you want me to review books, maybe I haven't read them yet, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to read them and give them a review. This video is going to be spoiler free. It's going to answer the same questions I did for my Christmas at the Lake book review. So I think it should be good for anybody that's wanting to check this book out, but they aren't sure if they'll like it or whatever. So yeah, this is going to be a book review with no spoilers. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's get started. So the book that I'm going to be reviewing is none other than Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So this is the book here, and I am actually wearing merch from the college. So I want to start off this review by saying I loved this book, and I think it's one of the best book / series I've read in a very, very long time. It almost really got me back into reading, and so I'm reading a lot more ever since I read Fourth Wing. So that being said, this review is going to be probably mostly positive. I forget what the questions were, so I'm going to have to look at my phone and see what the questions were, but overall, I love this book, and if you take nothing from this video other than that, just know that I love this book and I love the whole series and all the characters and everything. So it's gonna be probably hard to criticize this book, but we'll see how I do. I'm actually filming this intro last because I totally forgot to film an intro before I started reviewing the book. But Fourth Wing is about a girl named Violet Sortingale and her journey at Basgiath War College. Almost slipped up there because it's so hard to pronounce. Basgiath War College, where there are 4 quadrants. There's writers, healers, scribes, and oh my gosh, what is the other one? Infirmary. I'm just doing this off memory. So there's 4 quadrants, and writers are basically, they ride dragons. They bond with dragons and they ride them, and it's kind of like their battle. Like, you know, instead of like troops or whatever, it's dragons. So yeah, Violet unfortunately enters the writer's quadrant after she wanted to be in the scribe quadrant. That's not really spoiling anything because that's the first chapter, so that's not a spoiler there. So it just goes through her life as a writer and, you know, the people that she surrounds herself with, and there's a lot of violence and death and just, I mean, it's a war college. Of course there would be. And so nothing about this book is pretty, I would say. But she meets very handsome men along the way. Dane, Atos, and Xaden Ryerson are 2 of them that particularly stick out. And I don't really want to spoil too much of this book, but basically there are 2 options for her. She either gets on the back of a dragon or she dies, and the rest is history. So that's the little intro I got for you. Starting off with the same questions that I asked at for the Christmas in the Lake book review. Number 1 is, was there a character whose actions or decisions you found frustrating or unrealistic? How did this affect your overall perception of the story? No, I would say there's not a character whose actions or decisions I found unrealistic or frustrating, yes. Frustrating in the sense that I wanted, obviously, what's best for the character, and that didn't always happen. So I feel like that was the frustrating part. Unrealistic, no. The thing is, like, this book review is going to be a little bit different because this book is fantasy. So I wouldn't say unrealistic to really anything because it is set in a different world. There's dragons, there's other fantasy elements as well, signets. Basically, it's like a gift that your dragon gives you once you bond with them. So I don't want to give away any spoilers. So like maybe like flame or something like that. Anyways, so it's a talent that they essentially give you for, you know, bonding with them. But that being said, there's many fantasy elements. It's a totally different world that doesn't even exist in real life. So I wouldn't say anything in this book is unrealistic because I'm not comparing it to the real world. I'm comparing it to nothing but fantasy. So there was nothing unrealistic. Frustrating, yes. Unrealistic, no. Did it change my overall perception of the story? No. I thought the world building was fantastic. Anyone that's read fantasy, could probably agree with that. I thought the world building was great. I thought, if there were things that we needed to be aware of, we were made aware of them, and they weren't just random. They all made sense, to me at least. Next question is, were there any moments in the book that made you laugh out loud, cry, or feel intense emotions? What were they, and why did they affect you in that way? Oh, absolutely. I can't say that that's not true. I can't give away any because it would spoil it. So, and this is going to be a spoiler-free book review. So, were there any moments in the book that made you laugh out loud, cry, or feel intense emotions? I think every chapter. I think the author did a great job. Every chapter I was on the edge of my bed or on the edge of my seat, wanting to know what was going to happen. And then a lot of times the chapter ended on a cliffhanger, so you almost had to keep reading because you had to know what happened. Like, I couldn't just put the book down in that moment because I needed to know what happened. So definitely I felt many emotions reading this book. Next question is, how did the book compare to others you've read within the same genre or by the same author? Did it stand out in any particular way? So this is the first time I've read a Rebecca Yarros book, so I can't say anything to that, but as far as fantasy, this was one of the best fantasies I've ever read. It's easier to understand than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, I'll be honest, I am trying to read that series, and it is very difficult for me. The language, he almost writes in Old English, so it's a little bit hard to understand, and there's so many characters. This just follows one character. Well, really, it follows her and other people, but it's really only about her, written in the first person, and following Violet. So that being said, it does make it easier to understand and to read, especially if you're beginner fantasy. So I would say, compared to the others that I've read within the same genre, I would say this is one of the best. Next question is, how did the book structure, such as its use of flashbacks or alternating perspectives, enhance or detract from the storytelling? There weren't really a lot of flashbacks that I remember. It's been a while since I've read the first one, but to my knowledge, there's not any. And perspective, as Violet is the whole book minus one chapter. So I would say it really enhanced the storytelling because you really got to feel how a character was, feeling in any scenario. And these were heightened scenarios. There's a lot of death and scary elements to some people. So I think getting inside a character's head is almost essential in that aspect where you have to know what's going on. I feel like third person, it just distances you so much from feeling the pain that they might feel. So having it written in first person was something that I really enjoyed and I thought really worked for the book. The next question is, did you find the dialogue between characters authentic and believable? Why or why not? Okay, I've seen a lot of reviews on this online, and a lot of people will say they hate the dialogue. They hate it. They don't think it's realistic. They think it's, written for children. Some things along those lines. So I, however, found the dialogue realistic, believable. This is how, because I think she's supposed to be in her early 20s. This is how people in their early 20s talk. It's how I talk. So I didn't think that was unrealistic at all. I thought it was actually very enjoyable, and I thought it was very relatable because I really could understand where they were coming from on how they chose to use their words. So I disagree with all those reviews online. I think it was a great choice to make the dialogue younger because obviously they are younger. It just makes more sense. And I think a lot of fantasies don't think about that. They write, like I said, in Game of Thrones, it's more older English and very proper. So a lot of people write like that in fantasies because they think fantasy, so it must all be, make-believe and fake and made up. But this really brought in a realistic element for me. I was just having a sneezing attack off camera. How did the book explore the complexities of human relationships, such as family dynamics or friendships? Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I'm sorry guys, I don't think I have anything bad to say about this book. But it was great. I thought the character dynamics between different families were wonderful. It dug up a lot of their past and why they were, treating their family the way that they were. But not everyone's family had like a broken relationship, which was nice. Some people really, loved their parents and they were super supportive of everything they did. So it just made it so realistic. Like, not everyone is broken. And even Violet wasn't really broken. I mean, in a way, yes, she was. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there are elements of, that in the family dynamic. But overall, I think she had a pretty decent family relationship in this book. So I don't think that it was like a main focal point for her. Other people like Xaden, however, totally opposite. So it was just really great to hear everyone's relationship and different dynamics. And, some people were looking out for each other, some people weren't. And the same with friendships. Yeah, so the same thing with friendships is some people, treated their friends differently. Not everyone treated their friends the same in the book. And it just made it so realistic. Like, that Christmas at the Lake book, I don't know if anyone watched that review, if you're watching this one, but that one was so very, like, one-sided, one-dimensional friendships. Like, everything was great and peachy, which I get it for, like, a Christmas romance, but this is, some people don't like each other. There's a fight here. There's, people, it's a very heightened situation that they were in. So I think it was realistic in the sense that sometimes people would get mad at each other. They would keep things from each other. But I think people do in real life as well. Next question is, how did the author handle difficult or sensitive topics within the book? Did you feel they were handled with care and sensitivity? No, I would say not. I would disagree on this one. I think there is a warning page in the beginning of the book that says this book contains elements of death, poisoning. What does it say, actually? Let me read it to you. War, battle, hand-to-hand combat, perilous situations, blood, intense violence, brutal injuries, death, poisoning, graphic language, and sexual activities. So I think that's really the warning you get. It's not all peaches and cream in this book. And I really enjoyed that it wasn't, after reading especially Christmas at the Lake. So I think I wouldn't say that they were handled with care and sensitivity. It is what it is. People die. There's war, there's blood. It's not pretty. And I don't think that we should make it appropriate for sensitive readers. I think you read the warning page, you agreed to read the book. So that being said, it doesn't really need to be handled with care and sensitivity. But that's one I would say, no, I don't think it was handled with care and sensitivity. I thought the writing was great. But was I shocked at what was written on the page? Absolutely. Okay, the next question. How did the book's ending leave you feeling? Were you satisfied, disappointed, or left wanting more closure? Well, it is what it is. I can't spoil anything for you, but it of course left me wanting more. It excited me. Like, I was excited when I closed the book, because I knew I had Iron Flame, so I could just start that right away. So I didn't have to really like spend a lot of time in between the two to really mull over the ending. I thought the ending was great. I was smiling. It was the last page I was smiling. But before that, it was a very big climactic event, and I thought it was great. I don't have any comments on that, actually. So was I satisfied? Yeah. Disappointed? No. And left wanting more? Yes. Okay, next question is, which character in the book would you choose to have a one-on-one conversation with, and what would you ask him? Look, Xaden, and it wouldn't be just a conversation, if you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, he's the dreamiest character ever. I'm in love with him. I'm sure so are millions of other people. So I would definitely choose to have a one-on-one conversation with Xaden. So That would be a dream. What would I ask him? I wouldn't ask him anything. He's just so hot. I mean, I would just love to just go on a date with him and see where that goes. That would be what I would choose. The next question is, how did the book explore the theme of forgiveness or redemption, if at all? Were there any characters who underwent significant personal growth in this regard? Absolutely. Violet, I guess a little tiny spoiler is that Violet does hold a grudge, and then she gets mad when other people do as well. So I think it did explore the theme of forgiveness or redemption, of course, especially more towards the end when like shit started hitting the fan, literally. So it did explore that. It touched a little bit on it. I don't think this book really dove into it as much as I probably would have liked, but I think if that were the case, the book would have been way longer, because most of that is in the second book. Were there any characters who underwent significant personal growth in this regard? No. I wouldn't say personal growth for forgiveness and redemption. No, I think that's more the second book, and I think I don't even think really the second book. So I would say this one was a miss. I don't think that it did explore the topic of forgiveness and redemption, but the characters didn't really grow from that. But I guess that's okay with me. I don't know. I thought overall it was still a good book, so I'm not really mad that wasn't explored. The next question is, how did the book's pacing and structure contribute to its overall readability and engagement factor? Were there any sections that you found particularly difficult to put down? Every chapter. Every chapter was very intense. I did not know what I was going into when I read this book. When I started reading this book, I didn't even really know what it was about. I just saw that it was a good book online, and that's pretty much where I went with that. And also, I started reading it because I actually saw Onyx Storm was coming out, and so I thought it would probably be a good time to pick up the series. I will say, before I saw Onyx Storm, I originally thought this was a standalone book, and it's not. There's going to be 5 of them at least, and there's only 3 released, so just keep that in mind if you were going to read it, that not all of them are out yet. But that being said, the pacing and structure, very fast. I don't think there was really any lulls in the book, not at least not in this book. It was all very just go, 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 and it was, oh my god, what happened? Oh my god, I can't believe this. That's how I was feeling throughout the whole book. I think I read this book in, how long? I think it took me like 8 days to read the book, and that's with having a full-time job and other things to do. I couldn't read just and do nothing else, but I mean, 8 days is pretty fast for me. The last question is, if you could rewrite the book from the perspective of a different character, whose viewpoint would you choose, and how do you think it would change the narrative? I would choose Xaden 150%. I would. I mean, if she ever decides to explore that, like in the later books, I'd be down for that. Xaden is such an amazing character to me. He's great, besides being attractive, you know what I mean? But I think it would change the narrative in some aspects, but I think we would just get a whole different story if we went with Xaden, because there are things that Xaden does throughout the book that I think aren't as touched on as they should have been, because it is in Violet's perspective. That's the downside with first person, is you don't see everybody's perspective. You don't see what this person's doing while Violet is sleeping. You don't, because you don't know, you're not there. And that is the downside with first person. However, I love first person, so to me, I don't really think about it too much, and it doesn't really bother me as much as it might bother other people. But I would say, if it was in Xaden's perspective, it would be a totally different book. And I think that is something that the author should explore, especially since other fantasy / dystopian books have done that in the past. Like if we look at Divergent, I think the last book, or half of the last book, was written in For's perspective, after the horrible things that the author did to the main character. So I think it is something that the author could explore, and I think a lot of people will be happy with it, because I know Xaden is such a beloved character to not only me, but millions of other women. Nothing but really good things about the book. If you're on the fence about reading it, I highly suggest it. I don't think that you'll regret it, knowing those things that I've said about the book, and hopefully they help you decide if you should read it or not. More vlogs coming soon. I've just had a lot going on in my life personally that vlogs weren't appropriate. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!